Okay. Hi, Stephen. Hi, Tanya. You are the founders of Eyeyah magazine for children or youth. What is the target age of the magazine? Sorry.
I think the sweet spot is 12 years old,
Ah.
um, for for them to understand some of the ideas in there, and
Mm-hmm.
they've had enough life experience to catch some visual references, and because we use a visual language mainly for how we communicate or how we sort of address the themes that we choose for each issue. I think being visually literate is quite an important part of the way you read or consume like the magazine or the other things that we make, the animations, um, and the gifs and things like that.
Okay, so 12. So, welcome, Steve and Tanya. You're the authors and founders of Eyeyah magazine in Singapore, and it's for children, Sweet Spot 12. And your goal is to help children understand the social and other issues in society, and hopefully they can grow up into adults that care about them and want to solve them. So you're trying to stimulate creativity and innovation, and with children. You're preparing the next generation of innovators and creative people. So is that correct? Yeah.
Yeah, pretty
So
much.
Yes.
yeah. So sorry to ask. So like, is that correct? Yeah. So okay. So and Tanya, you're an editor, and Steve, you're a creative director. Is that correct? Again, is that correct? Yeah.
I don't know if I'm editor, but more like development of the growing the company
Ah, okay.
partnerships.
Okay. So you're
Yeah, and
the
Steve
boss of
and
the bosses.
Steve actually curates all the content.
Okay.
But I suppose we both have a big part in that. Yeah.
Okay. And so, what problem are you solving in more detail? What is your vision? Why did you start it? Where did this idea come from?
I think partly from having kids. I mean, we've always been involved in the creative industries for years, working with artists, working for commercial projects, working for, well, creating exhibitions, creating art shows. And I think all this while, um, we realized the power of what these artists were capable of. Um, and I think rather than sometimes they were not fully utilizing the artist's abilities when they were using it to sell, I don't know, beer or something like that. I think we sort of had an aha moment when it was we were trying to decide on a new direction for the company, and we thought, well, what about if we could introduce these artists and what they do to young people and get them interested in art, get them to appreciate art from an early age. And when I say art, I mean graphics and visual communication. And it seems to be a language that resonates with them. So not just kind of because they're quick and impactful, but they can cross kind of language barriers as well. And I think, I mean, our shared background, Nicola, working with Colors Magazine and really powerful visual imagery, I think it's quite obvious, like the change you can affect using photography or constructed images. And I think that's what we really became interested in, was using this sort of power of advertising um, to apply it to education and then start talking about subjects that we feel um, need to be addressed or need to be inspiring, such as climate change, um, food wellness, internet safety, the list goes on, anxiety, financial literacy. They're all subjects that we feel like maybe as kids, when we were kids, we never knew about. And we're trying to sort of fill that hole.
Okay. Cool. And so, Steve, you're saying that this is kind of you're inspired by the work of Tibor Kalman and Oliviero Toscani, and just making it for kids. Is that correct?
Exactly. I think there's something universal about that language that is like um, provocative in a sense that it kind of sort of wakes you up and hopefully is a memorable message. And I think that sort of areas where we're really interested in terms of can you put young people on the right track in terms of being conscientious and aware of their surroundings. And I think, you know, there's a lot of people tackling these issues with various other forms of education, but we felt like maybe we could come in from this side of advertising or visual communication. And it's an interesting area. I think we're having a lot of fun exploring the potential of this and experimenting. And so far, yeah, it's just been quite exciting growing that into what it's becoming.
Okay, and Tanya, and how do you see what I'm interested in is, I mean, both of you can answer, but I want to ask Tanya. What is the correlation between people knowing about an issue and actually doing something for children? You know, because you know, there is that, as Steve said, there is that element where you use some kind of a shock imagery or entertaining imagery, and you grab someone's attention and you inform them about the issue, and you tell them this is a bad issue, we need to improve it, you know, this is a problem. But what is the next step towards children becoming someone who actually does something about it, you know? And you know, do you have any experience on that, or ideas, or anything, you know?
Yeah, well, that's kind of important that in the end they take action, or that there's a real difference in them, and that's really what we want to aim for, and why we're working with teachers who can implement this in the classroom. And we're creating toolkits for educators that have learning outcomes, and that to get the kids discussing these topics in the classroom, guidelines on what they can do to make changes, small changes, like let's say with recycling, talking to them about recycling, having a discussion about why it's needed, but then right through to maybe taking action, but then being able to create pieces of communication about that topic, and starting to create themselves, like they're influenced by these images, maybe they themselves one day can be creators that influence loads of people.
Yeah, because what I'm worried about is informing people, but they still become passive. Because the main
Yeah,
problem is, you know, because I'm a marketer, you know, I'm a strategist. So, and I
yeah,
recognize that there is a strategy that is used by people by companies that actually pollute, meaning that they are informing everybody, but they're kind of putting the blame on those people who are being on average consumers, making them passive and negative, you know. So what I care about, I think in 2020, it is very important not only to inform, but to create people who take action and understand. They cannot be dismayed, you know, they cannot be confused. They take action, they actually make changes. Not that they are being informed like pollution is bad and I've done it, I had a plastic bag and it's my fault and there is nothing I can do. And, you know,
definitely. But the first step to taking action in when it comes to children is education.
yeah.
And the fact is, they're not learning about these things at school. I mean, yes, in some schools they are, definitely, but not in every school. We're not just doing sustainability, we're doing things like internet addiction, social media, people pay for likes, no one's telling kids this
Yeah.
really. Maybe some parents are, like I said, some schools are, but we feel that all these things. So that's the first step towards taking action, is really understanding.
Yeah. Okay.
I think
And
it also depends on how effective our messaging is in terms of like what, we raise these themes, but then can we inspire change? And that's where the challenge lies. And I think trying to find um, something that triggers that motivation. I mean, only time will really tell. But I think as long as we are addressing it, I think at least I can sleep at night and feel better that like, we're trying. And I think let's see, yeah, not everybody will respond. Some people are completely glazed over and completely indifferent about some things. But if we can kickstart some movement and turn consumption into creation, I think that's really exciting
yeah,
possibility.
yeah. And I tried. It's funny that we mentioned Toscani because I saw him, I think, start of the year before he left Fabrica again, and I chatted to him a little bit. I did a 1 minute interview. I was not into these long raw interviews, and I told him that I was teaching kids. I started teaching kids online on how to make apps. Like kids meaning a bit older than you're targeting, like 14, 15. I tried it first with my daughter. She was, I think, 13 when she did an app, and it went very well. Meaning she was not skilled with Photoshop and stuff, but she in PowerPoint she made a very nice app. Where kids can exchange comic books and their own drawings and stuff like that. And I became very interested in enabling children to make things because I think they have really great ideas. They have very detailed understanding how things work. It's just that the tools are not given to them. It's too difficult physically for them to make things. They're not skilled to engineer, but idea wise, they really have wonderful solutions. And I was teaching a couple of other kids, and I spoke to Toscani about it, and he really loved it because he made Fabrica, which is for 20, I think between 2019 and 23. And I told him, why don't you target younger people? Because I had some experience with that. And I met another thing. I met Marina Abramovic when she was in Belgrade here for the big show, and I saw she's surrounded with a ton of very young people. She had this school and this Marina Abramovic Institute, and it's full of young people. I think they're early 20s and stuff. So I just again, I'm talking on my side about my experiences. But do you have any ideas or experiences in how you can engage children beyond I mean, that's great what you said, Tanya, about kindergarten and doing exercises, but what are your thoughts on actually getting children to do things, to create things? Do you think there is a possibility in that?
In terms of engaging them beyond, I think that you're absolutely right. And that's why what we're trying to do is engage them in the mediums that they're familiar with, like Instagram and social media, and talk and use those mediums for action, like what we call it, creativity in action, and
like
start
Greta is a child, and she's doing all the campaigning, for all of us. Yeah.
where we wrote to her and asked her which artwork she preferred for our trash issue.
Yeah. And did she reply? No.
No, but anyway,
Why never
absolutely.
famous people reply? It's so boring. They never reply. It's depressing.
Yeah, they go on my list straight away.
So engaging them, and also the other thing that we try and do is work with institutions, work with science centers, work with museums, do art shows, engage them like in many different sort of paths of their everyday life.
Yeah.
So like a meme sorry, Tan, like a meme making workshop or a GIF making workshop.
Yeah.
Use the language that they love.
But let me put it this way. Like, imagine you have unlimited resources. Like, you're not limited by the budget, by the people. Like, what would you do? Like, I would just make some kind of a tool where kids can just make finished products and put them on the market and make thousands of apps or whatever.
Well, primarily I mean, there is building that, but there's things like Scratch online, which are like so powerful, like for kids to create, and really intuitive introductions to programming. But it's about awareness. And I think like, you can build like these fantastic tools, but unless they know about it and it becomes a household name, that's where the challenge lies. I mean, I think Google are doing things like this, and they're creating Google tools for kids to use or something. But to be honest, it still feels very technical. So I think the problem is awareness and actually a desire to learn those things. And maybe it's about how do you position the need for it to parents or young people. So, for example, we don't know what the jobs are going to be in 10 years' time. We don't know really what they're training for. So what we're trying to do is think of skills that would be necessary in any discipline. And they are things like observation, try to nurture being observant, being a problem solver. How do you think in a sort of diverse way, and what parts of design thinking can we introduced to kids, which is not very complex, but sort of flips a switch in them so they become inherently creative. And I don't just mean to go into the arts, it's to go into any job, a policeman or a fireman or an accountant. You know, creativity is not about how good you can dance, it's about thinking along different routes. And I think those are the fundamental things that we think everybody should have, no matter what discipline they end up in. So that's what we're trying to nurture.
Yeah, but Tanya, I mean, Steve, imagine I have 100 billion euros, dollars, you know, whatever.
I thought you did.
Yeah. Oh, sorry?
I thought you did.
No, I have 99. I don't have 100. I'm not there yet. Almost there. Yeah. So imagine I have 100. So actually one more, 100 billion, and I can give them to you. What would you make to, you know, what would you do with it according to, you know, within Eyeyah magazine?
You know, I think we would scale up what we're already doing, right, Steve? We've spoken about this before, and you know, we've achieved what we've achieved, which is apps and education toolkits and 4 publications, and we're still just making stuff purely by the 2 of us and supported by a team of, let's say, 4 people, and generally they're new graduates or interns. So we feel we've achieved quite a lot. Which shows that the idea is taking off, but with investment we'd be able to scale up faster. You know, like distribute more copies, do marketing, do advertising. We've done 0 advertising. It's all organic. We haven't spent a penny on marketing since the day that we launched. So a lot of people don't know about it.
But I think that idea of creating a school or some kind of creativity workshops on a large scale is really appealing, and creating those little powerhouses where ideas are thrown around and can really take forms. I think that's really interesting. But I think also using the language of consumerism, like creating Eyeyah as a brand so that it seems like appealing. And I think we've discussed this idea of, can we have high street exhibitions? Can we have art shows in a retail environment, you know, instead of just buying stuff. And
you can have a TV series with Brad Pitt as the lead role, a cartoon. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, exactly. They're really broad mediums, and I think again that maybe that could be part of marketing, or it could be a product of some of the research or some of the content that we're making. But yeah, there's 2 things need to happen. One is awareness, and the other one is creating these sort of structures for the magic to happen.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So what do you think are the main blocks for kids to be, you know, to be creative, to be innovators, to understand these problems and to solve them, you know?
You know, I tell you what, the current education system is one of them. So they've actually shown in studies that there's a drop in kids' creativity between primary and secondary in their perception of their own creativity. You see young kids, especially kindergarten, they're full of ideas, like you said. They put their hands up when they're asked, "Are you creative? Can you draw?" They all put their hands up. But once they're in the education system, which, as you know, is slow to innovate, to change, they've got to find the correct answer. They're not divergent thinkers. They're you know, they're taught to, they're afraid also. They become fearful of making a mistake. And those are all really the antithesis of creativity. And by the time they reach maybe teenagers, they really they just want to conform, a lot of them.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I think that's one.
It's hard to measure as well. You know, I think academics built on grading. And so we need to think of some forms of creativity or observation, or the things that we can measure and they can be assessed on, because that's a massive stumbling block in the school system.
Okay.
You said blocks.
Yeah, what's blocking them? What's stopping kids? You know, what do you think is how do I get my kids to be aware. Okay, first aware. They are somewhat aware. I have 3 kids. I do my best, but not perfect. And how can they be, active about what they learned,
I
And
think
also, how can they choose the right things to be aware of? I mean, okay, let's talk about Eyeyah, which I think you are choosing the right things, But where is the main block for them to take action? As Tanya, you said, what other consultants I spoke to, they're saying that there is this confidence issue with older people, us, with adults. There is a big confidence issue, and it's funny that you mentioned that with kids. That kids also have that. It's emerging at that age, I guess. The confidence issue, which is very much related to creativity.
It's also the fact, that it's also parents and teachers that are not sure themselves about how to talk to kids about, let's take devices, right? Because that's one thing that we talk about, like in our internet issue. Parents are not sure about how much time their kids should have the iPad. They install the safety things on the iPad and then give it to the kids, and the kids manage to bypass it. And there's no guide really for how a parent should talk to a kid about the devices and digital literacy.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I think my son learned how to type numbers because he needed to type in my password, to unlock the phone. But that's why I bought the Switch and PlayStation, so they don't use touchscreens. I think touchscreens are kind of not very good. There is too much poor content. I think when you make content for a more expensive platform, it's higher quality. There is more filtering there. So that's correct. But I mean, that's why I wanted to talk to you guys about, and girls, sorry, I don't know. Is guys an okay thing to say in English when you're talking to
just
Tanya
say,
and
Or
just say girls.
totally fine.
Fine.
girls? Yeah, sorry. In all my documents, I switched to she as a default, and I have to switch to girls. Yeah. Okay, so talking to you girls, Tanya and Steve. Yeah. and no, it's yeah. And I'm just worried about, I'm just thinking, because we are making this social media for innovation, and I was just trying to calculate how much people there are in the world that are innovating, because everybody's pretending it's like 3 people. Like, I mean, I love people like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. I mean, they're really doing a great job, but I mean, it's not like 3 people, because if there is 7.5 or 8 billion people in the world, and there is like 300 million companies, every company has a couple of people. Like, you are in one company, and you are both innovators and creative people. In my company is like 4, 5, 10 people that are actively innovating. So, I mean, just multiplying that, it's like maybe 20-30% of humans are innovating. Even if you go to the rural area somewhere where there is not, maybe so much knowledge industry, still people have to innovate all the time and figure things out, maybe even more. And,
Well,
so the more we are innovating, the better it is, and especially we need to innovate because there is more people. And if we don't innovate to be sustainable and be a little bit careful, like, it can be very scary. Like, I just read today that creating digital data is actually is a form of pollution. It's crazy. I didn't think about that. Some guy calculated that in 300 years or 200 years, like, we're going to create so much digital data, because each of that, each of the bits is actually an electron or something like that. So it's going to be like, actually,
yeah.
it's going to have
I
like
just
a lot.
look at all the shitty photos in my phone, man. It's like 12,000 photographs. I mean, I could probably keep 5.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's interesting statistic about. I wonder how many innovators, or what you'd call innovators, were innovating 30 years ago, and what proportion of the population were marching or driving forward like this hunger for change. And if that number grows, you're right. You're going to get better designed things, more thoughtful packaging processes, all sorts of things. So yeah, definitely a good sign. And
Yeah.
I mean, if everybody was being innovative, is that nirvana? Is that the ultimate goal? I mean, it seems like an interesting thing because they're being mindful and they're being thoughtful about
Yeah.
every decision they make, every action they take. They're analyzing it, and I think that's really all we can ask for, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's good that you're saying, because you just gave me an idea that creative and innovative people are also critical people. They're the ones that are gonna maybe raise the hand and say, well, as you said, Tanya, confidence. they're the ones that are going to raise their hand and say, well, I don't like this, let's do it another way, I have a better idea, and they have an argument for it. That's the point of creativity. Like the whole group is going in the wrong direction, they're going to be like, whoa, wait, I have a better idea, let's talk about this, and then problem solved.
I think laziness is an interesting trigger for good ideas.
Yeah,
and
I'm
also,
a genius in that sense.
And also,
yeah, that's a good one.
What's the other word? Like impatience is another driver for innovation. And I think, I look at my 8-year-old son, and he can't wait to skip or fast forward to the good bit. And I think this kind of ability to edit out the things we had to endure as young people, adverts, whatever. I mean, these are going to be key things that's going to push forward technology. Oh, they have already, I mean, look at Netflix, look at YouTube, having timelines, scrubs on videos. These are changing fundamentally. The maybe you could argue the enjoyment of watching, having a slow, what's the word, like a slow experience. But I think there's a time and a place. So yeah. Impatience and laziness will change the world.
Tanya, what's your advice for my kids? So I have 3 kids: a boy 5, Marco; a boy 9, George; and a girl, Sofia, 14. So what should I do? How do I get them to be like Steve?
Oh, God forbid.
You want them to be like Steve?
Well, not so handsome. They don't. I
Listen,
don't think that's possible.
That's a good question, Nicola. And I mean, I think.
Yeah.
Independent and creative. Well, we're trying all the time, and I'm working hard on it right now. I'm doing a master's thesis on this topic. So yeah. I think we're doing what we think is the answer, and there are probably other companies doing it as well.
What do I need to do?
But
what do I do
exposing them, exposing them to creativity, to take them to museums, talk to them about, this is what I do anyway. This is our kind of formula for Eyeyah. Talk to them about what they see when they're looking. We do it through visuals. Talk to them, show them complex visuals, and ask them what they see and have a conversation with them about it, and try and nurture their visual literacy. Try and get them to slow down and observe. I think that's what Steve and I were literally just talking about earlier. It's the age of distraction. These kids are doing everything so fast, and they're not observing and noticing anymore. And maybe in the future that's going to be potentially a problem. And are they visually literate in a visual culture? Are they able to see when an image is photoshopped, or as opposed to not? Can they critically assess what they see in the media? As parents, I think we need to try and draw their attention to these things. And for me, my kids, I give them those old National Geographic encyclopedias of science phenomenon and the animals and the human body, and get them to, and it's so interesting to observe them doing that, because they'll just go by the pictures, go first with the picture, point at the picture, and then say what's happening here, and that's how they want to learn.
Yeah, more pictures.
I think humor is really important. So keep telling them your great jokes, Nicola.
My one great joke.
Your great joke, sorry. And, I think get them to think of jokes, get them to try and come up with jokes. And because the chemistry that happens, that spark when you associate two different things in a new light, that's creativity in its purest form. And I think that probably they don't have joke telling in school. It certainly could be the best, most fun class out of all of them. And it really is how you end up like me, but not really. But what I mean is like being surrounded by comedy, telling your kids jokes. I mean, okay, don't not take life seriously, but I think the process of when you form pictures in your head, when someone tells you a funny story or anecdote, your brain is doing some work, and you have this sort of aha moment when you get it. And I think that they call it the smile in the mind, the moment of like reaction. And I think you personally, you get something out of it because you've done a little bit of work and you've understood something. And then also you feel a little bit confident and you also feel enthusiastic. And I think enthusiasm is one really underrated thing when it comes to being creative um, and getting excited about a subject. And I think it's a key word I would leave in this conversation,
Mm-hmm.
trying to get
Okay.
people enthusiastic through inspiration.
Okay.
I
Well,
spoke to someone else who to this big illustrator. Anyway, he told me the other thing. One of his tips was let kids find their passion and nurture that. And it's so simple and so obvious, but it's so true.
oh, so
Try and let
difficult as
what
well.
they're good at, huh?
Well, it's very difficult as well. Yeah.
Basically, video
True.
games, right?
Yeah. You have to try 100
That's
things
okay.
and
You know what? Get them to then go and build their own video game, which is exactly what you were talking about. My daughter's not into video games, but if she was, then I'd get her. I tried to get her into a coding thing. You know, now they've got it's all online in India. There's this White Hat Junior. You could do coding lessons with someone from India, etc.
yeah.
And she wasn't into it, but a lot of my friends whose kids are really into gaming and are building their own game, and then that's their motivation. So
Yeah.
they start small, have more and more lessons, and then
I'm not sure if I want, I mean, just talking about my kids, because I live in a country where like you drop a rock and you hit a developer, you know, so that's like the main purpose of this country is to have software developers. And I have a company of software development where we make our own software. So, but it's so difficult when you get into developing software. Your mind starts working on these operational tasks, which are unbelievably difficult, and you have to be super intelligent to solve it. But you lose thinking on that higher level, you know. And that's why I took my kids to work on simple PowerPoint, so they're not burdened by the engineering. You know, engineering is so difficult. You know, when you have the idea and with PowerPoint or with just like with crayons, you can quickly make it and you're happy. And you need to do that 1,000 times. I think if you get into programming, you have an idea and then you have to work like I do with my company for a long
I think
time just to get that idea to see it alive. You know,
you need to
and
be able to visualize. You need to be able to. So I think one skill you could nurture is, let's say, there's coding, but how do you visualize the information?
yeah,
And
that's
there's
that's
lots of ways of doing that. And I think if you become really adept at seeing complex situations and being able to reinterpret them into forms of communication that other people understand, then there's huge opportunities,
yeah.
in Belgrade or internationally.
Yeah, I'm just worried of them going into operational things too soon, you know, because they become better at being operational, you know. And I'm always, that's what I spoke with Stephen in another interview, is that I'm always worried about people becoming too operational. You know, they become so good at a specific thing, and they don't achieve what you did. It's like you were doing one thing, you girls were doing one thing, and then you switched on a meta level and you went up and you saw problems that are, you know, you need to kind of raise your head and look around. um anyway, I want to ask you, Tanya, so what is your perfect partner? You know, who would you like to work, who should do something with Eyeyah and to make it big?
wow. Hmm. God, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Well, we've always liked Lego, right? We've always liked.
I like Lego. Yeah, I mentioned Nat Geo earlier. I mean, I like Nat Geo. Yeah, Lego. We've
What about like an education system in a country? You're in Singapore, you know, maybe Singapore or a Chinese education system with like a half a
I
billion
mean,
children.
we're starting to work with edutech companies now, and Singapore. We would love to. I mean, that's why we purposely did this for Singapore, for local schools, and that's why we're really doing all our effort to support local schools with this. So that's, we would love to work with the Ministry of Education here in Singapore. We're not there yet, but I think it would be a huge sense of a huge achievement for us to get there. The Singapore government have been supported what we've done since day one. So we really want to give back to as many children as possible, starting here and then obviously in other countries.
Yeah. Steve, your perfect partner?
Well, I think we'd have. I'd prefer to use some brand that the kids actually liked. Um, you know,
They don't like
I,
the education system.
of course not. I think I would like, let's say Uniqlo, let's say someone that has massive reach and lots of infrastructure, and and use their channels for what we're doing. I think leverage their appeal. I mean, um, obviously, like TV stations, we're working with Nickelodeon to try and get like a big reach in Asia, and that's been a nice partnership that's been growing on our content. But I think in terms of physical spaces, what we'd love is for them to actually see more art in real life and more installations. And so, who are the people, who are the companies that are on every high street? How can you turn those into art experiences rather than solely retail experiences? And I think that's where I get interested. So um, I don't know if there's one specific partner in mind, but I think that area is where I'm interested in terms of growing it.
Yeah, I'm just listening to. I'm just realizing. So the Eyeyah is basically is based on idea of using the commercial language and commercial situations to educate children. So that's the main idea. Um, is there a risk that, because you're so close to businesses, which I personally don't think it's a bad thing. I mean, there is nothing wrong with the business, but that if you work with a brand like, I don't know, Apple or Google or Uniqlo or someone like that, Lego, that your project is becoming maybe a sales tool for those businesses. Again,
Yeah,
I don't see that as a problem. I'm asking as a, like, maybe someone in the audience is
you've
skeptical
just
about
got
it.
to you've got to just imagine the value that it would bring overall. I mean, yeah, I'm totally aware we could make really great looking content for other brands, and we've done that our whole lives.
Yeah.
But I think we need to create Aya as a brand so that it has that appeal to young people, that they buy into it themselves, and it's like their choice. And I think in order to get there, we have to hack other brands and grow in that sense. And I think the choices we make along that journey are going to help. I mean, they're going to define what we end up being. So yeah, I mean, a partnership with a fast food restaurant, we'd really need to weigh up, what's going on with this partnership. Is this something that we feel comfortable about? What are the outcomes? What's the results in perception, and all sorts of things like that. But yeah, we're very aware of these partnership sort of sensitivities, and we'd like to think we'd align ourselves with people who have similar values to our own. Whether it's Whole Foods, whether it's um, climate change. I mean, yeah, lots of brands are having identities now, and it's quite easy to choose who you would like to be aligned with.
Yeah. There is one interesting thing. My partner Andrea, he met a film director. I mean, I don't know if you know about my consulting, but I work with some sustainability brands, and part of my work is to convince people to go sustainable. And I'm always looking for new ways to convince decision makers, which I think are not so many. The main decision makers for sustainability globally to make sustainable decisions. And the most effective decision that I heard of is my partner, Italian partner Andrea Toniolo. He spoke to I don't know which, I mean, I cannot say which film director who made a documentary about animals and sustainability. And he said that a child of like a CEO of a big company saw that, and that child told the father, "Well, Daddy, are you doing this and that?" And the father got worried and made a change. And that's for me an interesting hack how to make a change through the children. It's kind of like maybe not, I don't know if that's ethical. I need to think about it. it's kind of Machiavellian, the means justify the goal, but but let's say it was indirect. It was not planned to use a child to influence an adult person, but that's the way, some decisions are being made, like someone was creating content for children, and those children still have parents who are making decisions opposing the what the children wants, and when the child is aware of that and speaks to parents, then parents are under huge pressure to adjust. They need to change. So that was very interesting to me.
Well, I think
Yeah.
it's relatively short term in terms of the thinking. So hopefully it's generational, and if by right, if everybody's thinking along those lines in the next few generations, then we can put everything on track in some respect, and sort of create a little bit of restraint or order or whatever on the kind of mad consumption that we're doing at the minute.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I'm going to end that. I'm going to tell you that one joke, that I've been telling for 20 years, and I don't know if I have any other questions.
It's totally inappropriate. What is it?
No, it's always the same joke. I only know one joke. So a blind man is touching a grater and says, "Who the fuck wrote this nonsense?"
Touching a what?
A grater, a cheese grater.
Cheese grater.
Oh God.
Okay, listen. That is a good example of you create an image in your head.
I
right?
stole that joke. Jokes are stolen. Nobody knows who made the jokes. Jokes come from aliens. They don't come from humans. I never met anybody. Did you invent any jokes? I tried. It's like impossible. It's so difficult.
Jacob tried. It was a bit okay, right, Steve? Steve's son invented a joke.
Yeah, kids can do it, and aliens.
Exactly. Kids are pretty good at it.
I never met a person who made a joke. I never met. It's like imaginary. I think aliens, that's proof that there is alien life, because humans are cognitively not capable to make, but we love jokes. You said, I was thinking about bullying, because kids make jokes to bully, and that's also a form of creativity, and some of the bullies from my school are actually productive, cool guys now, and girls, and so I don't, so I was thinking about that, but that's a very complex discussion, because you said,
Now that's about being mean and motives, but I think
yeah, but there's humor in it. For them, it's funny.
I think if you use the same muscles that you do to come up with nicknames as you do to address things that are basically better motivated use of it, that's perfect.
Yeah, but there is a fine line between, how do you control the creativity with a kid? That's a bit, meaning you have to teach them to be respectful, but how much do they understand that, and how much you want to control it?
Well, yeah, but it's the same muscle in the brain. It's what question you ask them to solve. If you're saying, hey, let's make a nickname up for Steve, then there's an element of malice in there, right? But if you say, hey, let's make up a name for this new animal that we're going to make, then it's like, what's the word? Like constructive.
Okay. So, that's proving the theory that kids that are bullying, that have negative, effect on others, they just need to channel all that energy into something, That's a good point, yeah.
They just become copywriters in the ad agency.
For tobacco. It's like for tobacco brand. Do you have any questions for me, Tanya and Steve?
No, it's cool. Thank you. Thanks for your time.
Yeah, Steve, any
fun.
questions?
It was nice talking to you.
Cool.
I'm full of questions, Nicola. I'm just
not for me.
Yeah, probably, but I can't think now if it's totally related.
Okay, cool. Well, good luck with Eyeyah. I hope to get that issue that was promised to me by you, Steve.
Send me your address, Nicola, after this. Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah, because I sent it already 100 times to Steve. Okay, and finally my kids can see it, and I know they're gonna love it. Thank you very much. Talk to you soon.
Well, I want to do one shout out. We're having a GIF sticker exhibition very soon, so you can. We're commissioning about 30 GIF stickers. And then we're encouraging you and your friends and anyone to make stories using these stickers. And we're going to make an exhibition out of the public submissions. So I'll give you the links for that later.
Okay. GIF, you mean, not GIF.
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 You
I don't
can't
know.
get into
I
that.
don't know. I don't know what the GIF is, but I'll sure to research.
But you know what a
it.
GIF is.
Yes. Graphic something. IF. Graphic IF.
Interchange format.
For interchangeable. For yeah. And what is a GIF? Juice interchangeable format. Okay.
Graphic.
Okay, so the 5 people who watch this video and they survive until the 55th minute.
How long it's been?
3 years from now, they're gonna see this. It's like soon
Yeah.
there's gonna be a GIF
one.
GIF one. You know, so 3 people in. I want to say to those 3 people in 2027, you're too late for Steve's. For Steve's GIF stickers project. Yeah. But
Well,
if
in
you
theory, no. They're going on Jiffy. They're going on Jiffy. So unless Jiffy's gone by then,
Yeah.
which it probably will have.
Okay, and I would also suggest that you check out Giphy as well. Could be a good one. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Nicola.
Ciao, ciao. Have a nice day. Ciao.
You too. Send me your address. Bye.
Bye.
Thank
Ciao.
you.
Ciao.